Kansas City Chiefs looked very impressive last night as they had a huge bounce back win, a huge revenge game over the Super Bowl, and all sides of the ball were clicking. And we're going to dive a little more in depth into it and basically dissect every aspect of this game. But before we get into all of that, please be sure to subscribe to the channel and like this video, as I'm going to keep you up to date on anything Kansas City Chief related that you do not want to miss out on. And without further ado, let's have some fun. Now, before we get too far into this, first and foremost, I do want to apologize for not releasing an instant reaction video last night. I wasn't feeling myself. I had a killer migraine that was bugging me throughout the night, and then one of my favorite things to do on this channel is my instant reaction. It gives you guys an in-depth version of me, who I truly am. I mean, that's my most raw I will ever get, is right after a game, win or lose, you will get my pure emotions. And it just sucks after a game like that where we basically have our best game of the season. My body just wasn't right, so I do feel sorry for that, because I was going to push through, but then when I was going to do it, was like, this isn't who I am. It's like, I don't really want to make this video. So I do apologize. I am feeling better. I am feeling like myself. And if I was going to give you a little intake on how I felt about last night's game, that shit was amazing. They were firing on all cylinders. Patrick Mahomes proved he was him. The defense was looking good, and the special team started off right after a basically bizarre game against the Colts. It was everything you asked for in a game, everything you hoped for. You knew this team was going to come out with vengeance against the team that kicked their ass in the Super Bowl. There was no way they were going to drop this game. I wouldn't say there was no way they were going to lose this game, but there was just not going to be no way they weren't ready for this game. And I knew that was going to be the case. It's just, what Buccaneers team were we going to get? And I think we knew all along. And when you go back to the Super Bowl, Kansas City is a better team than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Buccaneers just happened to play the Chiefs when the Chiefs had their whole offensive line hurt, when Patrick Mahomes had a broken toe, and they got a Super Bowl win out of it, unfortunately. Kansas City Chiefs... The Kansas City Chiefs proved last night that they are the better team. They have always been the better team, and they always will be the better team, because Patrick Mahomes is the quarterback. And when you have Patrick Mahomes playing Petty Mahomes, you're not beating him. Last night was some crazy, spectacular stuff he was doing from the jump. I mean, he was making passes that we're used to seeing. Like, there's even highlighted plays that aren't being highlighted. Like, I think his very first pass to Kelsey, where he slung it in between the offensive linemen, I think that was the first down of the game. No one's talking about that. And it's because it wasn't a highlight, because Mahomes was doing absurd things on the field, making twist moves, spin moves, jump pass to Alaire, throwing the ball downfield, MVS making incredible catches, him breaking tackles in the backfield. I think the thing that basically made me feel confident in this game from the get-go, besides special teams, which we're going to get into, is I think it was that Juju play where Mahomes broke a tackle. He was being brought down by, I think it was Bunting, and then he was basically falling down, and he threw a pass that had no right to be thrown, but he knew where Juju was, and Juju made a play on it. That was the type of play that was being made in the Super Bowl, and that was the type of play that wasn't had. The receivers either dropped it, or it was deflected into intercepted, or Mahomes had to run for his life and end up taking a sack. When I saw Juju make that play, I'm like, okay, these receivers are going to show why they are different from last year. Now, stat-wise, it's nothing crazy in the receiving room whatsoever. Juju, I think, had 46 yards. I think MVS had a little bit more than that, but you're not going to highlight anything spectacular out of it. But one thing I think you do need to focus on the receiving room, as I mentioned, it will take time. But I think the promising note with all of that is I think time is very, very close to where these receivers are about to go off. We saw Juju's production increase last week, and then he got not more playing time, but he saw the ball more. And then MVS, you started seeing that connection start to basically lighten up. And then you have to see Sky Moore too. Now, I want to say he only had one catch. He might have had two, but of course I remember the one on third down where he ran a beautiful route. His route running is filthy on third down, and made it a magnificent all-hands catch. But there's one play that a lot of people aren't going to focus on, which I just wish. I think it was it David? It might have been David who made the deflection, but when Moore ran a slant route, if David did not deflect that, Moore is gone for 60 yards. I'm going to need y'all to watch that play again. I don't know if I can find it and put it on the screen or put an image, but if I can, I will. But if Mahomes gets that in between David and his hand doesn't deflect it, Moore is gone for 60, and then that is the Sky Moore show we have all been waiting for. It was cool to see Sky Moore get more snaps. I think he was out there for 21 plays. He didn't see the ball a lot, but seeing him on the field in his presence was great to see. And also, too, I know you guys heard me preach all offseason, all preseason, that I'm a huge McCole Hardman fan. And I still am, and I still hope for the best for him, but I don't know. Last night told me it's like maybe this is his last year. It basically put a huge question mark over my head. And it's not because of what Sky Moore did. It's not because he's going to play more. Of course that's going to happen because he's a rookie, so we should expect it. But the thing that basically put the 3 question marks over my head was when Mahomes missed Hardman wide open in the end zone. And it's not, he didn't even miss him. He didn't look his way. Like, he was focused on Justin Watson the whole time on that route. That should let you know it's like he focused on a wide receiver number 5. Now you could say maybe he was just trying to give his buddy a touchdown against his former team. Yeah, that could be. But the fact, or you could say Mahomes wasn't, reading his progressions. You could say that too. But you could also, Mahomes is known for looking, and finding the right guy. Again, it has tendencies where he basically plays hero ball. But that wasn't last night where he tried to just chuck it around the field and make a presence besides his 1 interception, which we'll get into. But it's like he stuck with Watson and didn't even give Hardman a chance. And I think that says a lot because he didn't even look his way to say, oh, maybe he's open. Maybe I should look his way. It was just, hey, Watson, it's Watson or nothing. Maybe I'm looking a little too deep into that. I don't know, but that made me feel really uneasy. It wasn't uneasy in the fact that, damn, we could have had a touchdown. It was more like, damn, does he not trust Hardman like that? Again, I might be looking too much into it, but I really viewed it in that aspect too. But Mahomes is him. He was playing out of his mind. The only, it would have been a perfect game besides the interception, which I believe the interception was just pure greed. I think he wanted to put the score on him. CEH was open in the flat, and that's another one where I mentioned he's usually good at getting his reads until he gets greedy or until he plays hero ball. And that was a situation. He was greedy. He went for it all, and it backfired, unfortunately. And thankfully, it didn't cost KC anything, which at the end of the day, I didn't think it was going to. But it just sucked to see an interception happen when the kid was playing magnificent through the whole game. He was vintage Mahomes. It was some stellar stuff that you love to see. Now let's focus on one of the main components on why the Kansas City Chiefs offense was clicking, and it's probably something the Buccaneers didn't anticipate, which they really should have, because it's something they did a couple of years ago in the regular season. Was Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Isaiah Pacheco, they took this game over. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I'm sorry, haters, you're going to have to sit down for this one. You guys were alive against Indianapolis. It's time to take that seat. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, even in Indy, he had a touchdown too. The running game was just stagnant. You can't do anything. That Indy game is still going to bug me until probably, I don't even know, for the rest of the year, because they should literally be 4-0, but things happen. Coaching, offensive line, you name it, they just wasn't themselves. And then you see us go and put an A game against the top defense in the league, and you're just like, what were we doing? And it's frustrating. I know, Chiefs Kingdom, we are too used to that happening, but at the end of the day, it did. But CEH, he was on one, and you guys need to start putting respect on his name, because I don't know if this will dwindle down. Everyone's like, he's going to cool off eventually. I don't know. Yes, he's not putting 100 yards up every game rushing, but he's giving you production in the receiving game. He's giving you a touchdown every game. I'm not saying that is sustainable, but what if it is? What if he's like Mahomes' security blanket? We always mention Mahomes needs a new security blanket. I mentioned in the offseason, it could be CEH. And if they involve him more in the passing game, watch out. I never viewed him as a top 5 running back. I did view him as an elusive, receiving and running, where he can bring a different dimension to this team, which is what he's doing this year. Yes, let's hope he stays healthy throughout the year. Because if he can stay healthy throughout 17 games, he literally could be on pace, like I mentioned earlier in the year, for 1,000 receiving yards, 1,000 rushing yards, 500 receiving yards, in double-digit touchdowns. If you look on what pace he is at now, he's on pace for a little under 900 rushing yards, 600 receiving, and 21 touchdowns. That's absurd. Yes, his biggest knock is he does like tend to get too shifty in the backfield and not find the hole. Which last night he had a couple of those plays, but last night he was like running like Isaiah Pacheco, which we'll talk about here shortly. Is like he lowered his head and he was picking up those extra yards too. And yes, he struggles on the goal line, but Kansas City found out how to use him effectively. It's like, well, if he can break through the line and get in, throw him the ball. That's what they've been doing throughout the season. And if you guys are going to get upset because he can't rush it in, what's the difference? If he's receiving it, it's still a touchdown in my book. Just like people who are saying, oh, Kansas City is not throwing touchdowns to wide receiver. They're throwing touchdowns to everyone else. At the end of the day, 6 points is 6 points. Why do we care? We know it takes a while for these receivers to learn the system. And if Kansas City is 3-1 and they're still learning the system, you guys should be scared when it comes November and December, because this is a lot of room for improvement. And everyone thinks, oh, KC's at its peak. It's far from that. This offense has a lot of room to grow. This defense is still missing Willie Gay on suspension, a Trent McDuffie. It's exciting to see this team grow when basically everyone was banking the Chargers to be your Super Bowl team, the Raiders to come out of nowhere and win the West, and of course the Broncos. Now look at us. We're still the champs, and we're the champs for a reason. And then let's talk about Isaiah Pacheco. That grown man did his thing. Man, I don't even know how many yards he had because I didn't really focus on the stat line. But what I did focus on was he never went down on the first tackle, and he was always bulldozing his way. He's a tough son of a gun to bring down. It's fun to watch him run. I think it's great to have a two-headed monster in CEH and Isaiah Pacheco. And if you can run like that, and if this offense is mostly featured in the running game, which I know we're not used to in the Andy Reid era, but I've mentioned it so many times in the offseason. What if the Kansas City Chiefs get a run game? This is what their offensive line is built for. Just watch out for this team. And this game against the Buccaneers pinpoint everything a Chiefs fan should be excited for. They split carries. They both excelled very well, and it's something you can live for and be excited for. The only thing I would basically kind of nag on a little bit is find when you want to use your running backs and when it is best to use them. For example, this play is going to stick in my head, which it probably shouldn't, but it was either 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1 when they went for it with McKinnon. I don't think that was McKinnon's spot to have the ball. I think if you give the ball to Pacheco, they pick up that short yardage situation. I think Kansas City needs to find ways to basically say, oh, CEH should be here because it's a receiving play. If we just need 2 yards, give it to Pacheco. And if it's like a 3rd and 6 and you want to call a RPO to either run or pass, throw McKinnon in there because he's your most explosive and elusive back out there. Again, it's so young in the season. They will get it right, but it's very, very promising stuff. And let's talk about the other GOAT on this team. Perfect time to do it. Travis Kelce passed Gronkowski's receiving record and moved on the all-time board list. No better place to do it against Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. And for someone who is basically the number one target, boy went off. He had 9 catches for 96 yards and 1 touchdown. That was the main thing I was going to be concerned about. It's not whether Travis Kelce was going to produce. It was going to be what would happen if the Tampa Bay Buccaneers basically covered him and who would Mahomes go to. And they didn't. Like Mahomes and Kelce's connection was from the get-go. It was solid. It was strong. There was no stopping it, and it was exciting to see and fun to see. And it was kind of surprising, honestly, because when I heard Kelce had 51 yards to get in this game, it's not something I thought the Bucs were going to pinpoint and stop him. But I did think, is he going to get it? Because this Bucs defense is really good. And I know they're going to do everything to stop Mahomes' number one target. And they didn't. So I was kind of shocked in that aspect. And now we're going to move on to still staying on the offensive side of the ball, but focusing on the offensive line, which, again, it's so tricky with the offensive line. It really is. They did do their own. They held their own. Mahomes was barely touched. But at the end of the day, too, you got to give a credit to the kid as well because he scrambles, he makes his plays. I think he had 2 sacks. One was off a cornerback blitz, and I think one was just pressure that he didn't notice, and he took a sack, and it was unfortunate. Was it? I just want to say it was because I'm not sure. I'm trying to refresh my memory. I was going to say, is that on Brown's side? But it probably isn't. I'm probably just getting too in over my head. There was a play where Brown, it's the inconsistency why. He did his thing. He held his own. Right now he's playing I'll say good at best, but like Barrett, he had a couple plays where he basically almost got to Mahomes, and if Mahomes wasn't who Mahomes was, those would be easy sacks. So you got to credit the quarterback too, but the O-line did their thing. Joe Tooney is a thug out there. No one was getting past him. Trey Smith was handing pancakes out for breakfast. Creed Humphrey was doing his thing. And the underdog on that line, and Andrew Wiley. Yeah, you could say he's inconsistent, what be it or whatsoever, but for someone who we didn't even project to be your starting right tackle, I think it's going to be harder when Lucas Niang comes back and if Andrew Wiley keeps progressing. How are you going to replace him? He's literally playing solid ball at the right tackle position. And if you get a basically consistency after the bye week with this line, there's no reason to mess up a gel that's working too. Like, if it's working, there's no reason to buffer it or fix it whatsoever. But now we're going to flip the script and we're going to go on the defensive side of the ball, which they did their thing. Now, at the end of the day, it may not look like it because Tom Brady, if you didn't watch the game and you look at the stat sheet, you'll be like, how did the Buccaneers lose this game? Because Tom Brady, he had a better game than Patrick Mahomes. Yada, yada, yada. You Skip Bayless lovers. Yeah, you probably watched his timeline. Because at the end of the day, if you didn't watch the game, that's what it looked like. What? Brady threw 400 yards, 3 touchdowns? Yeah, so be it. But when this game got going after the turnovers, L'Jarius Sneed had a beautiful sack. Now, I don't know if L'Jarius Sneed has his own island. I do not know if L'Jarius Sneed is a lockdown cornerback. What I will say is he is a versatile player. He is our best DB. He could be your best DB. He could be your best safety. He could be your best linebacker. He already has 3 sacks on the year. The kid is a stud, and I wouldn't change him for the world. Like, yeah, everyone wants that lockdown corner. That might beat McDuffie when he comes in. And then if you got to pair him on the other side with the L'Jarius Sneed, that is a scary duo to go forward with as well. And then Nick Bolton was doing his thing. This whole crew stopped the run so early that the Buccaneers had to abandon it. And don't let the NFL media world fool you and say the Buccaneers didn't run the ball whatsoever, and that's why they only had 3 yards rushing. No, the Kansas City Chiefs put pressure to where they were like, you're going to have to throw this ball around and let's see what you can do. Which is weird because last thing you want is Tom Brady to beat you with. But when Kansas City got a lead and when this offense was clicking, that's what they were banking on. And I actually think it was a smart game plan too. I think one thing Kansas City needs to adjust on their defense, which I don't know if you can adjust because it's the scheme they play in the zone coverage or even in the man-to-man, is I've seen it every week is where the running back or the underneath man will pick up 5 yards. And that's just because Kansas City doesn't want to get beat deep. But when you got quarterbacks like Tom Brady or a Herbert who can manage the game all the way downfield with those dink and dunk passes and still get a touchdown, you got to make those adjustments and things like that. That was one of the most annoying things I saw. And that's where Shannon Sharp even mentioned those empty calorie yards come in, because it's not fun to see that, because you know at the end of the day, that's what they're going to do and that's how they're going to get in the end zone and score. So I want to see adjustments when that happen. Again, young season, we'll see. I've watched this defense for a few years, though, so I know that's something they do lack heavily in. But we'll have to see moving forward. I do love how they played, though, to start the game off. And I'm not going to look too much into the second half defense because this wasn't even a game. Because when Kansas City held, a 3-score lead, they weren't giving up anything. And then it just happened to be when, I think, the Mike Evans touchdown, and then KC answered back. It just so happened in the fourth quarter, it got close because that's who Tom Brady is. And when you can at least hold him back and not make it a game, you got to take that as a W for what it's worth. But the main focus point all Chiefs Kingdom should really be looking at, and what we should be most grateful for, is this special teams. You could tell Dave Tobe was in their ass all week. Andy Reid made it a presence probably for the offensive line and the special team. Hey, we might lose this game, but it better not be because of you guys. And they made their presence on the first play of the game, and it was great to see. Elijah Lee, he was basically released, practice squad, elevated. How about you get that fumble recovery? It was a cool sight to see. And then Sky Moore on the punt returns, he started getting more into a groove, but you could tell right away where he's like, let me just fair catch this. And then it's smart to do because you don't want to jeopardize your team. And then when he started returning punts, he looked good. And then Isaiah Pacheco, he returns every kickoff. But at the end of the day, he got them all past the 20. He almost broke one for a touchdown. This team was just gelling. They were just clicking. They were just feeling themselves. And it was exciting to see. And even a day after, like, this is probably getting close to my real initial instant reaction was just basic, pure excitement that you didn't know what you were going to get in this game. I could see people being worried because, like, if this team shows up the way they did against Indy, what's going to happen? Like, I don't want to watch this game or whatsoever. Or you can be like me, and it's like, this team has a lot to play for. They definitely going to fight for that revenge. And you knew Mahomes. He's petty about that stuff. There was no way they were going to give the Buccaneers an easy W. There was just no way it was going to be handled. So it was weird coming into this week. I felt more confident going against the Bucs than against the Colts. For some reason, trap games just worry me because I know how Kansas City plays. Kansas City likes to play basically to the power of their opponents. If they're playing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, best believe you're going to get their best shot. But if you're playing like, I don't want to say Raiders, but like, because Raiders can be good, but like for the Colts, they will play down your standards and feel like they can still win a game. And that shit is so agonizing. It's like, can we just punch someone in the mouth for 4 straight quarters and be our best? But it's what they do. It's the reason you hate them, but you gotta love them because they're one of the best teams, if not best teams in the NFL. But Chiefs Kingdom, I'm going to close this video off. You let me know how you're feeling after this game. It was an exciting one. It's great to see our team back on the winning side. But, hey, we got Monday Night Football. It is Raider week. I'm going to have you full in depth with that. So please be sure to subscribe to the channel and also like this video out. It helps me out so much, you guys. And thank you for all the support with that. I'm checking out. Y'all take care. Peace.